What does it mean to master the game of life? Like any game, it requires a fundamental understanding and application of the rules. But living in today's on-demand society is making this nearly impossible as our attention is increasingly being fought over and monetized by others. Will Moore's mission is to help you hit the reset button by providing a new set of game rules based on time-proven universal principles in modern science to gamify your life by making it fun and addictive to replace your habits in the 5 core areas of your life proven to lead to true happiness. Ready, player one?
Awesome opportunity to connect with your community.
So,
Thanks for having me.
let's get right into it. So you're on a mission. You want to help over 1 million people. You have a company called Body by Purpose, right? An Elite Champion Fitness Academy.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everybody kind of what you're doing with this stuff and how you're using this stuff to help people become happier, healthier, and all these good things.
Look, everything stems from losing my childhood best friend at the age of 21 to obesity. We grew up, did everything together. He was kind of the overweight, huskier guy. I was a younger, more athletic looking individual. And he struggled with his health. He struggled with his life. He struggled with his confidence. He struggled in all aspects of his life. And so growing up after high school, we went our separate ways. And at 21, I got a phone call that he had passed away. He had gotten so overweight and just so desperate to get the weight off. He went to get a gastric bypass surgery. 2 days later, got an infection and he died, right? So that was the worst sucker punch of my life up until that moment. And I started to blame myself. Should have done more. I could have done this. I could have done that. So after about 8 months of beating myself up, I had to quickly realize, well, there was not much more I could have done. I did the best I could. However, I did make a commitment at that moment that if I could help somebody avoid going through what my best friend went through, I wanted to make sure I did that. And 16 years passed, fast forward, I'm holding myself up still to that commitment, and it's really about that, helping people live a life of freedom through health in a smart, simple, and sustainable way. Because I believe that when health is your foundation, it impacts everything, right? I mean, health impacts everything. It impacts your mood. It impacts the way you think. It impacts the way you feel. It impacts your performance. It impacts your relationships, business. If you're not healthy, you can't thrive. And I don't believe in just existing. I believe in quality of life. If your life isn't at the quality you want it to be, then we can improve. And in that core basis is our health, because the healthier we can get, the stronger we can become. And that includes mental health, emotional health, physical health, right? Yep. Relationship health, health in the way you deal with yourself, the words that you speak to yourself, the things that you're listening, the information that you're taking in, right? It all plays into that. And so I'm on that mission to help 1 million, at least for now, 1 million people live a life of freedom through health.
100% on board with everything you're saying. So now this is what my show likes to talk about. I like to get into the actual systems and the habits that will help people do exactly what you just said, right? Because people want to hear, they all know what you said is what they need to do. And now let's give them some actual actionable advice. So I know I'd asked you and you responded on some of the top habits that you've developed and how you've been able to gamify them. So which for those who are just tuning in that aren't familiar with the concept, it's reduce that friction by making it easier, kind of customizing that habit to your personality, your DNA, your strengths, your likes, your weaknesses, your dislikes, your passions, all these things, and using things like making it obvious, making it easy, making it rewarding, satisfying, these types of things. So why don't you tell us about some of these top habits that you've developed, and then we can talk about how that translates to what you're teaching people and how you gamify it. Yeah,
beautiful. Absolutely. One of the core components I think that is essential is our believing. I believe that right believing leads to right results, right? And so when we are struggling with things that we're doing that we may not like, habits that aren't unhealthy, habits that maybe you're not satisfied or pleased with, Well, we have to first evaluate, what am I believing? Because what you believe is what's going to lead you to the action. Your thoughts produce beliefs, and those beliefs would produce your actions. So we tend to focus on the backwards aspect of it. We want to change what we do without addressing, well, what am I believing about myself, right? And so the core component that has helped me is to always reevaluate, what am I believing about set situation? What am I believing about myself in this area? What am I believing about relationships? What am I believing about money? What am I believing about health? What am I believing about food, right? And a lot of the things that shape us today stem from circumstances and situations that we learn from. Most habits are learned behavior. We learn how to do them. Your relationship with food today is something you learned from a young age, from your environment, from the people you saw, from your parents, from your upbringing, from your culture. The view you have on health is something you learned, you adopted that. And it's important to evaluate, well, what is my belief about this situation? And even what am I believing about myself? Because the words you speak are a direct description of your belief. The actions you take are a direct description of who you are and how you view yourself.
Just to interject, I actually have, that ties perfectly into I call it the equation of life, which is your belief system plus your repeated actions plus time equals who you will become. And it all starts with those beliefs, because it's the beliefs, it's what, like, who you are at your core. That's what your actions are gonna, end up being manifested through that. But at the same time, you can't just say, you can't just rely on, I think that's where you need to start 100%. But then what you need to do is, there's also work involved in saying, okay, this is what I believe. Now I got to get to work on the habits that revolve around this belief, right? And there's a front loaded, I call it that front loaded hook, where it's like, you've been doing a habit for so long and it's dug its little claws in for dear life, and your neurons are just used to doing that, and you're on autopilot. And the trick is to disconnect, to be able to unleash those little ticks that are stuck to you and transform them into ones that are actually helping you build that momentum. And that's where you got to do that you got to gamify it, right? You got to fake it till you make it. You got to take those actions long enough. Once you identify it, say, this is what I believe, this is what I want. Now, this is the habit I'm doing that doesn't align with that. Now I need to take this action long enough that's going to replace that habit until that becomes automatic, right?
That's right. Yeah, we got to change the neurological connections, right, that have been firing, that are taking us to this particular habit, to this specific trail, right? And recreate new neurological connections that will change and help us with our behavior. When we are absolutely clear of who we want to be, I want to be healthy, for example, right? That is who now I want to start believing. Well, it's important to start evaluating and start looking at, well, what things around me are being an interference that are reminding me of my old self, that are reminding me of this person that I used to be, right? Because I say used to, because we've now made the choice. I no longer want to be that person. So we've got to believe it in the sense of present today. That's no longer my nature. I'm no longer this lazy, unsuccessful, unhealthy person that doesn't take care of themselves, or whatever that is for you. That's got to be real for you. And the way it becomes more real is by removing interferences that remind you of that old person, and start putting things that can remind you of who you now have chosen to become, this new identity, right? So that's one core component that I believe is really helpful and can help to really get us on track into, okay, so now what? What's the next step, right? How can I then now start changing my habits? How can I start now taking actions that are aligned with who I've now chosen to become? One of the statements that I tell my students is, before you make a choice, is to ask yourself, is this choice in line with who you want to be? Is this choice in line with who you've decided to be?
So we've got the first part. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
And so I
was just going to say,
go ahead.
So identify, the theme I'm getting here, right? It's that identifying, becoming aware, which I totally agree with. And that's the first step every time I'm helping somebody is, first you got to shine a big old spotlight, right? And understand like, okay, what's going on here? What's misaligned with your belief system and what you're doing or where you want your belief system to be, and what maybe you know it's skewed right now, and you're looking at the world this way because of whether it was your parents or your school or social media that you've been looking at, or influencers or experiences you've had, right? We develop habits, our brain actually does change, even though that's not deep down who we are, right? And so then you go, okay, who do I want to be? Then, all right, now let's talk about in actually saying, okay, now it's time to get to work on these things. How do you advise people to go about it, right? How do you get, what is your method for getting people to say, okay, let's actually start changing these habits, and here's the best way to do it?
Two things. One, I believe in confessing and speaking. The reason we want to confess the new truth or your new identity is because we believe through hearing. The more I can hear myself repeating, I am healthy, I am a person that goes to the gym, I am a person that is active, I'm a person that loves my wife, I'm a person that takes care of myself. As we speak it right now, we may not believe it because our present reality is the total opposite. However, if we speak, declare, start confessing this new truth, your new identity, the more you hear it, we can start to impact our neurological connections to
speak it
start
out
to
loud,
believe, right? That's
to who?
Speak it out
To
loud. Absolutely. To yourself, to anyone, or to essentially when you speak it, it's for you to listen. It's not for somebody else to hear it, right? And one of the things I like to do is we can create what we've known as affirmation statements, declaration statements, truth statements for yourself. Now, these truth statements are going to be, well, who is this new person? What does this person do? So we can simplify it by creating a list. Okay, if I want to be healthier, well, what does a healthy person do? What does a healthy person do first thing in the morning, right? What does a healthy person do throughout the day? What are the activities that this healthy person does, right? How does this healthy person take care of himself? And we can utilize resources to kind of guide us and give us information if we're really stuck. Google, well, what does a healthy person do, right? How does a healthy person eat? What does a healthy person wear? How does a healthy person speak? Those are all real simple things that we can do to start creating a list of things that can now guide us into new action steps as we also declare and speak this new identity to ourselves. Because again, it's as I hear it, I will start to believe it. And the biggest point is, it's not to be a hypocrite or to try and fool yourself. It's literally to help you believe the new identity that you have decided to live out now, right? So doing some of these affirmations, one simple quick thing you can do is if you create some affirmation statements, some truth statements you want to start speaking, you can put it in the restroom, and I advise my students is first thing out of bed, you go to the restroom, right, to do your needs. As you do the needs, you're now going to see those affirmations in front of you, and you speak them to yourself.
Now there's a game. Now that's what I was looking for. There's the gamification, right? That's how you're reducing friction. Your habit stacking.
That's right.
Because what you're doing is you are taking something you're already doing. You've already built the momentum in life. You don't have to even think about it. We all go to the bathroom. It's there. Now, while you're in the bathroom, here's something rather than just standing there. You're actually using that time wisely by looking at your daily affirmations.
Utilize an existing habit to incorporate something new. That's right. That's right. And in the same way, so for example, let's say a healthy person is active. Another way we can leverage that is every time you go to the restroom to pee or to do your business, before you do your needs or after you do your needs, do 5 to 10 squats.
I like that.
Do 5 to 10 wall push-ups. You're already there, right? What are we doing? Like you mentioned, Will, eliminating this friction that is going to be a hindrance of you not becoming who you said you want to become, right? So we leverage these things to help you. So if you're going to the restroom 5-10 times a day, you're all going to be doing 50 to 100 squats a day, simply by taking a few seconds to reaffirm this new identity that we are molding and we are crafting out here, right?
And so here's another way just speaking of like, so, right, talking about like you were saying, like, you know, making these lists, right? And going onto Google and searching. I think so. One of the things I try to help people with is like really to help them connect the dots between getting to A to Z, not saying, all right, you want to end up at Z.
Right.
So figure out how to get to Z, but rather saying, okay, you're at A, let's just get you to B, and let's, you know, and then B will lead to C, C will lead to D, right? The law of compounding, small little steps to make it easy, less friction.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that I think is important for people to do is just spend a week writing down your routines, like the things that you're literally doing on a daily basis. And I break it down into your morning, your afternoon, and your night. And here's what's interesting about this. We all know that we have certain, you know, bad habits that we need to kick, like, oh, you know, my late night snacking or smoking cigarettes, the obvious ones. But when you actually write them down, and the reason I say Monday to Friday is because I feel like all bets are off on the weekends. It's not a consistent routine, but usually Monday through Friday, at least Americans, you know, and I think most of the world, you know, they have like a routine where they're going to work, they're kind of doing the same thing every day. And this is where you really need to take a close look and say, all right, what am I doing? And then what I like to actually do is break them down into, I color code them. So I spend a week and you'll start to see how, wow, I didn't realize I was doing this. And wow, like this is something that has become a bad habit that's just on autopilot, that's hurting me, that's making me less happy, less healthy, right? And then I color code them from neutral, red is a failure habit, and green is a success habit. And my goal is to actually turn all of them into green. I'm not there yet, but it's kind of the way when you break it down like that, you're kind of like, okay, it's in plain sight. These are things that I'm doing every day that are hurting me. And the neutral ones, the black ones, like for instance, you were talking about going to the bathroom, that's an opportunity. Whereas it's like, okay, that's a neutral habit I'm just doing.
That's right.
But, well, wait a minute, I can put my daily affirmations up there. And then now that actually, I can habit stack, and that becomes a success habit. And so the idea is, right, to actually create this list, have that, and you review that in the morning, and you grade yourself. You say, all right, how did I do yesterday? So that's kind of how I like to do it.
Beautiful. 1 point for new me, or a point for bad me, or whatever that is. But I think it's in that, I love what you just explained. And I think to help us is to really choose, okay, where can I start? Can I choose one thing, right? As humans, we tend to want to be overachievers and we want to do it all. And if we're not doing it all and it's not all right, or it's not working properly, then we tend to beat ourselves up and give ourselves a justification as to why it's not working to then quit, right? We're always looking for that exit. We're always looking for that place that we could kind of quit on ourselves. But if we can choose one thing, right? And we can choose one thing and we can remove more of that interference. For example, let's say you want to drink more water. Well, let's put a water bottle on the side of your bed. So first thing in the morning, you see it and now it's there. You don't have to think about, crap, I got to go downstairs. I got to grab it. Just screw it. I'm too busy. I don't have time for that. Right. Or if you want to walk 5 minutes a day in the morning, well, let's set up your clothes by the side of your bed. When you wake up, you can see it and say, okay, now I don't have to think, I'm just going to take action and go do it, right? It's about making things easier. Go ahead.
What you said is so great, and I want people to really understand. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? You want to make things easier, habits you want to form, you want to make super obvious. If you want to stop them, you want to make them invisible. You want to make them easy. If you want to stop them, you want to make them super difficult, like add a lot of friction to where it's hard for you to do. You want to make them satisfying and rewarding. And if you don't want to do them, somehow you're being punished and it's bad, right? And so what you did is a perfect example of that, making it easy. Just putting those shoes there, you see them, they're and obvious, easy and obvious, right? And it's just one little step, but remember we were just saying like A leads to B leads to C, not saying, oh, I got to go to the gym, because then what people do is go, oh, God, that whole thought is so overwhelming, getting in the car, getting dressed. But now it's like, oh, I already put my shoes on. So a funny thing, I use this when I play, I have in basketball league Thursday nights, and it's at 8:30 at night, which is late for a dad of 3 kids, because I've already put my kids down, and I've already kind of like, my routine is to sort of decompress and just relax. And now I'm like, I got like an hour between when I have to now go to the gym. And so what I do is I immediately, after I put my kids down, I put my my gym clothes on, because then I'm already in them. And
Oh,
8:15 rolls around
that's
when
right.
it's time for me to leave, and
Some
I have that
fallacy, my man.
and I'm like, well, I'm already dressed, and it's just that little bit of reducing that friction that allows me to do it. Do you have anything that like that that you do?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. First thing is it's going for a walk, and I have my shoes right on the side of the bed, and I have my clothes right there. I get up, I put it on, right? Sometimes to eliminate that having to change, I'll sleep with it on already, and then just wake up, put my shoes on, and used to go
right
and get going. Another thing is to eliminate the things, or to stop, is I believe in making it extremely difficult, right? I had a conversation with someone, well, how do I stop eating those chips? How do I stop? If you don't want to get rid of them, well, the best way is just don't bring them into the house, right? And we eliminate that aspect. But if you still have them, well, let's put them in a cupboard and let's put a lock on it and put the key in another place. And now you're making it more challenging for you. Dang, do I really want to go all the way here, find the key, open the lock, get in here and do all these things, right? So it's about making things challenging to stop doing, and making things easier that, again, remind you of who you committed to become for yourself. And it all goes back to meaning and purpose, right? I believe if we can establish the meaning and identify the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing, a habit, meaning the reward, if it's great enough, we're going to stick to it. The brain is going to be, okay, the reward aspect of what I'm doing here is beneficial. It's at a greater scale, so I can learn how to do this because it's beneficial. Which is why we want to also go back in there and establish, well, what does it mean for you to be this person? Why is it important for you? Because we tend to focus on extrinsic motivations, meaning external things that can get us up to do things or can kind of push us into doing something. But if we can find that internally, known as intrinsic motivation, and now I have a meaning, I have a purpose as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, well, the reward is going to be greater for you. Therefore, the ability of you adopting this habit is going to be more significant. It's going to be at a greater scale for you, right? Which is why, like you said, it's not how long is it going to take me to do it, but it's like
repetitions.
How many repetitions.
And so this is such a key, an important piece too. Like, I've read, it sounds like you've read a lot of the similar books, Atomic Habits, James Clear, BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits.
Correct.
They all kind of have the same theme, right? Which is these things we're talking about, kind of make it easy, reduce the friction. And, you want to start with those small, tiny little steps. And that's kind of what I've started to really get in my life and gear around just these tiny steps. And it sounds like, you're doing the same thing. And I feel like this is what we need to really focus on when we're talking about these habits and what we're changing, because when you look at like the masses, and I think this is the difference between what most people are doing and versus this conversation we're having, that I think is such an important distinction, is you need to form what I call them golden habits, where it's like, they are not just, you read a book and it says wake up at 6 a.m. and go to the gym, because I've read a zillion of them and I used to try to do that.
Yeah.
But then I realized it's at a certain point that doesn't fit my personality or my DNA. I am not an early bird. I'm a late. So I actually have shifted my habits to, like, at night, I actually am super productive, right? Like, especially if I get back from the gym or something, my mind's racing and I'm alert, and I'll actually knock things out until like 11 or 12.
Absolutely.
My wife's the opposite. She goes to bed at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. She'd go to bed at 7 if she could. And so the key is finding those habits that are suited to you to reduce that friction, right? That are to your personality, to your DNA, to your likes, your wants, your strengths, your weaknesses, your passions. Because if you're doing something, and this goes back to what you're just saying, that's tied to who you are as a human, to your core beliefs of what you want, where you want to end up, it just makes it so much easier. So me playing basketball once a week is, I love it. It doesn't even feel like exercise, right? I'm having so much fun doing it. But my wife, that would be torture, but she'll go for a run or she'll hop on the Peloton. It's every person. And I got to scream from the rooftops how frustrating it is that you read these, posts and it's like, go get exercise, get out there today. And, yeah, you know, they'll say like take a walk or something, but to me it's like, hey, to me it's more, it's better to say, hey, this is how I do it. How are you going to do it this week? Like, how are you, you know,
Yeah,
do you like going, if you don't like going for
that's
a
right.
walk, don't go for a walk, you know, or, you know, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
helping people to really connect those dots.
We have to understand ourselves. We live as humans not knowing who we are, right? Not really truly understanding ourselves. And we got to come back to that. We got to come back to understanding who we are and accepting that who you are is great. How you were made and how you live is beautiful. It's perfect because it's you. It's what makes you, right? And so we all have different lifestyles. We all have different ways of doing things and things that please us and things we enjoy. And it all comes back to what can we craft that is unique and that fits who you are. I don't believe in books that say, oh, look at what the successful do. You got to do this. No, you don't. I believe we can take some information from it, but it doesn't mean you have to copy what somebody else is doing because you're not a copycat. You're a unique individual created beautifully and we're wonderfully made. And now it's about how can I, with who I am, make things that I want to do align with my lifestyle.
Right. And
because if it doesn't align to your lifestyle, I hate to be the giver of bad news, but it's not going to work. You will eventually fail or quit because it's just
that's
not
exactly
sustainable.
Right. And we're living, people forget, like,
right.
They don't forget, but it just is what it is. And we're in it. And it's hard to notice it, that we're in this like world where technology is just taking off so fast that we can now click a button and get anything we want delivered to us. We can get ourselves delivered in a car, right? We can, it's like we can get anything on our doorstep within an hour. And the consequence to that is our discipline is eroding. We're used to just being able to just click a button, stay at home, watch a video, get those dopamine hits. But no, I mean, you've got to actually do the work, and you've got to have that discipline to say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. And there's ways to make it easier, and that's what's fun, right? You make it a game by saying, okay, well, I can customize it to myself, and then I'm going to use this little habit stacking trick and whatever. But then it's that following through, right? The neurons that wire together, fire together, wire together. And it's like, you've got to get those neurons on autopilot doing these things that are good for you, because if you don't, you're just going to be stuck in this sort of malaise. And I can guarantee you there's a lot of people watching this right now that are going to say, okay, deep down, they're like, there's something just not quite working, right? And it's like, it's hard to identify what that is. And what we're saying is the key to all this. It's just shine a big old spotlight. Like, what are these habits and what are these routines that you're doing that aren't working? And then figure out, okay, now I got to, use some friction reducing and some gamification and find my golden habit that'll allow me to sort of overcome that. And then you just got to hold yourself accountable every day. I use a scoring system where it's like every single day you say, how did I do yesterday? Because then that just keeps reminding you. And it's not going to happen overnight. But going back to our original conversation, the law of compounding, and teeny tiny little steps going from A to B, goes to C, goes to D. And then before you know it, you're at Z. And what's cool about it is once it's formed, you don't have to worry about it anymore, right? It's like, okay, got that.
That's right. It's just automatic. The same way you did the old habit, now you're doing the new habit, right? But also understanding we got to be kind to ourselves in this process. I believe it's something that isn't talked about enough. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay. You will probably fall off a little bit. But the attitude or the perspective in which we take from every circumstance is that we've got to fall in love with the process of discovery. This journey is we are learning, we are discovering more about ourselves, which means that if we don't commit to a set habit that we said we wanted to do today, it's okay. Can we learn from this situation? Can we learn from this experience to then gain from it to carry us over to the next day, right? Because it is a process. We are on a journey. Be kind to yourself and increase the frequency that can make it fun. If we can increase your frequency where you're having fun, how do we do that? Well, let's find out what makes you come alive. Let's find out what things you enjoy to do that are fun for you, and let's utilize those things so that it can be what drives us each day. Because I believe in all areas of your life, it can be full of life, and we can have fun if we choose to make it fun. And I utilize 4 questions that I tend to ask myself each day to keep me kind of in alignment with that, right? It's, well, what do I want today? What do I want out of life today, right? What do I want out of myself? What do I want out of things? What do I want? What do I need is the second question, right? What am I needing today? Taking a moment to just silence yourself and say, what am I needing? Am I needing a hug? Am I needing to have a conversation with somebody? Am I needing some love? Am I needing to just please myself in some way? What do I need? What do I desire? Do you desire for yourself, for your family, for your relationships, for your health? What is that? And then the last question, like, what is important for you? What are the things that are important? Because what we want to do is, can we create some non-negotiables? If my health is important, okay, then that's a non-negotiable. Anything else that throughout the day that wants to come and interfere with these things that are important for you, then we can take a stand and say, no, I'm sorry, you're not allowed, right? We can stand against these things. And then the 5th question would be, well, what are we grateful for, right? These questions have helped me and continue helping me each day to kind of keep me in alignment to that truth of myself and not live.
This is a perfect way to wrap up the show, because I love those 5 questions. And now let's take this a step further. And I think all those questions are something that people should ask themselves every day. So how are we going to gamify that for them, right? Is this one that they put on there in the bathroom, or is this a separate one where they're doing? So like for me, I do my shower, like a habit stack I do is in the morning, I'll take my shower and I'll say my mantra to myself, what I'm grateful for. And then I'll finish with my priorities for the day. Is this, where do you ask yourself these questions, and how can we help the audience that's watching say?
I tend to put them in the shower myself.
Yep, that's a good one.
If I'm being honest, in the shower, because there's a lot of thinking in there for me that's involved, and a lot of great ideas come from the shower. And I believe that doing things that are just habitual, we don't have to think about it, are great moments that we can utilize to recreate or reconstruct something new within us, right? For you, it might be when you walk the dog, if you have a dog, right? For you, it might be on the drive to work, right? You have something there that you could just ask these questions. Oftentimes, a good way is to record it. Right? You can then listen to it, right? Whether you're, again, making your coffee, doing your things. I have certain things that I go to each morning when I'm doing my morning routine and preparing my papaya, my green tea. I've got a unique routine that I follow for my digestive system, and in that, it's like I listen to very specific things, right? That help me stay on track. So, in things that we're already doing, I think there are beautiful ways that we can incorporate these questions. I love it.
Well, that was a perfect wrap up, giving people some ideas, and then they can be thinking, okay, how can I do it? You know, maybe another idea, a reminder in your phone every morning that goes off at a certain time, and you know you're going to be you have your coffee or whatever, and you pay attention. Dude, thank you so much, David, for being on the show. This was awesome. We've had some fantastic combos here. Keep doing what you're doing. Let's keep in touch. We'll let know people in the show notes where they can find you and learn more about you and your program. Awesome. And yeah, man, thank you. This was great.
Love what you're doing, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's an honor. We'll stay in touch.
See ya.
That's it for the Gamify Your Habits podcast with Will Moore. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to visit moremomentum.com to learn how you can gamify your life.